fans were thinking, okay, maybe because they lost the AFCON final in 2019, and I think people were, and although the qualification for the World Cup was quite straightforward, I think people were kind of thinking, right, there needs to be, with the talent at their disposal, people getting itchy feet and thinking maybe it might be time for someone else to take them on. He was not so long ago playing non-league football in England. He was on loan from Sheffield United, but he was so it's quite the journey for him to be now potentially going to start in the World Cup against the Dutch on next week.
AFCON winners in 2021, led by the always calm Allou Cisse, Captain Koulibaly, and the Sadio Mane, hopefully. This is a team that is ready for all oncomers, making their second consecutive appearance. For the first time, this team is already making history and will be hoping to make even more. In a group with Qatar, Ecuador, and the Netherlands, they'll be aiming to come out on top. And here to talk all things Lions of Teranga with me is author of No Longer Naive, African Football's Growing Impact at the World Cup, and news editor for Eurosport, Ibrahim Mustapha. Welcome to the show, Ibrahim. How are you doing?
How are you doing, mate? Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, looking forward to this. It should be fun. Should be good.
Nice. And I always ask this question, whereabouts are you calling us from?
London. Yeah, South London. Yeah, not quite as exotic as Dakar or anywhere like that, but yeah, beautiful Croydon. Nice rainy Croydon this evening.
Oh, nice. We'll take it. Nice. So, Ibrahim, I know that Senegal are a team that a lot of people are very excited about, right? How excited are you feeling ahead of this tournament?
Well, was feeling quite optimistic about their chances, but possibly thinking that they'd be the African team that potentially has the capabilities of going furthest in the tournament. But obviously, the build-up's not been the build-up's nothing wrong with the build-up. Just the news that came out last week and sort of ongoing, the will he won't he of Sadio Mane and whether he's going to be fit enough to play in the tournament, which is obviously a massive blow if he isn't able to play, and still quite disruptive for their preparations, not knowing at this stage. I think the latest news is that he could be missing the first couple of games at least. So, yeah, it's a real shame because obviously we know how good he is. We know everything he's done at Liverpool and he's gone to Bayern, and it's just almost been a seamless transition moving to the Bundesliga. Obviously playing for Bayern helps, but he has just gone in there. Yeah, he's gone in there, slotted in. He's still scoring goals in the same rate he was doing at Liverpool, and yeah, it's all been going well for him until the very last game before he was set to join up with the team. And he got injured and picked up a knee injury, I believe, and he's a doubt potentially for playing at the World Cup. And it's never good for any team to go into a tournament with sweating over the fitness of a potential star player. I mean, you know, in England we've had it with Rooney in 2006, even Beckham in 2002. Closer to sort of more related to sort of African football, Egypt in 2018 had Mohamed Salah injured before the World Cup, and all the umming and ahhing over whether he was going to be able to play in the end. And yeah, it's not welcome news for Senegal, I'll tell you that much.
No, it just adds a bit of disturbance you don't need, right? You just don't need those distractions, and you need all your players there. But before we talk about the tournament and hopefully how key a part Sadio Mane is going to have, how did Senegal qualify? How comfortable or uncomfortable was the qualification process?
Well, the CAF qualification process is absolutely, it's one of the it's probably harder than being at the World Cup for a lot of these teams, because you've got to go through a group stage. I mean, some teams have to come through a pre-qualifying stage to get into the group stage. The group stage are broken up into 10 groups of 4, and only the top team goes through. So potentially you can have a lot, and that's not even going through. That goes through to the next playoff round. So yeah, you've got groups where you can have 2 or 3 strong teams. For instance, Cameroon's group, they had Ivory Coast in there, so you know only one of them managed to make it through, which was Cameroon. Even sort of Ghana in there with South Africa, and you get like a load of. It's very tough. You get like teams that you'd think should be qualifying for the World Cup end up missing out because they have to go through this tough process. Senegal, for their part, they had a relatively straightforward group. They had Togo, who you may remember did qualify for the World Cup back in 2006. Yeah. And the qualification process was equally convoluted then. Not quite as it is now, but yeah. They got through then. But they were in Senegal's group. Namibia and Congo, who, you know, they're probably lower down the scale in terms of sort of like the hierarchy of African teams. So Senegal pretty much breezed through. 5 wins, 1 draw. Draw was away at Togo, and progressed to the qualifying with the third round, the qualifying round, the playoff round. Sorry, where they faced off against Egypt, who, as we know, were possibly one of the strongest teams on the continent, and Senegal managed to get through on penalties. Mo Salah missing a key penalty.
It was deja vu all over again, right?
Yeah,
like
there's
a real chapter going on between Senegal and Egypt now. Like,
I mean, because that was just a replay of the AFCON final, which took place like a month earlier, which was again went to penalties, and Sadio Mane, of course, scoring the decisive spot kick in that game. And and Mo Salah famously didn't get to take one because he was lined up for the 5th penalty in that game. But then when he did get to take one in this playoff match, he ended up missing. So Senegal managed to get through that tough process of qualifying and get through to the World Cup. And and that's it. That's why they're there. And it could have been so different, obviously, just depending on how the draw has gone for that qualifying round. Because I reel off the teams who were in that playoff. Obviously, Egypt and Senegal, Cameroon, Algeria, obviously AFCON winners in 2019 and just coming off a 30-something game unbeaten run. Ghana facing Nigeria, which, there you go. Morocco overcoming Democratic Republic of Congo, who are probably not quite as high profile as that, but they're
improving, aren't they? I feel like they're improving.
Yeah. And then Mali, who are sort of perpetual AFCON quarterfinalists, they narrowly lost out to Tunisia. So it wasn't no tie in that playoff would have been easy for them. And Senegal managed to navigate their way through against Egypt, which could have been one of the toughest ones they could have potentially asked for. So just shows their strengths at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's it exactly. And I think it just like that. I found that Senegal Egypt thing really fascinating because, as you said, it was a month after the final. There's just so much narrative, Mane versus Salah, etc., etc. But we need to talk about the same man who is in charge. Of course, he's in charge. Allou Cisse led Senegal to winning the AFCON. How much do Senegalese fans believe in him? Are they still absolutely in love with him? And how would you describe his style or his philosophy of football?
It's funny because actually, I think prior to the AFCON, I think people were potentially getting bored of him, kind of thing. It's a rare thing in African football, A, to have an African manager in charge of a team, and B, for someone to be in a position for more than a few years. I mean, he's been in charge since 2015. So wow. It's coming up. After the World Cup, he's done 7 years. He'll be into his 8th year. Should he stay on after the World Cup? And I think it's sort of, that sort of over familiarity thing. I think fans were thinking, okay, maybe because they lost the AFCON final in 2019, and I think people were. I mean, although the qualification for the World Cup was quite straightforward, I think people were kind of thinking, right, there needs to be, with the talent at their disposal, people getting itchy feet and thinking maybe it might be time for someone else to take them on. But then he sort of answered his critics with the AFCON win, obviously, and obviously taking them to the World Cup. And now we'll see what he can do in the tournament. Obviously, he is he's a legend in the country anyway, just based on what he's done as a manager, but also as a player as well. He was part of that famous team in 2002, which reached the quarterfinals, where they unfortunately lost to Turkey. Where they shocked France, obviously, that everyone remembers, getting through that group. That game against Uruguay, which is one of those games that might be slightly forgotten about, but is an absolute World Cup classic. If you look on that, if people want to go back and look at that one. And he's been a part of the, just basically just embedded into Senegalese footballing culture. And he is, I think people love him now, of course, because he's won the AFCON and now he's taken them to a World Cup where hopefully they can do something unexpected again. So, I mean, in terms of his style of management, he tries to get his teams to be sort of play on the front foot. But I think there's partly, I think there has been perhaps a slight a bit too direct and over-reliance on Mane. Okay. And when he's not up to it, perhaps things sort of not working out so well, I don't think. So I think that's why people were starting to get a bit umming and ahhing about him. But, I think it might be something without Mane. There might be a bit more experimentation, and with the talent in the team, you might see the team actually, pushing on and being a bit more adventurous and not so focused on one man.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, well, you see it a lot with teams, like when they have that one star player, let's say, that it does become a bit one-dimensional. So now they might have to figure out other ways to do it. Now we're gonna really not talk about Sadio Mane now. That a lot of the players that we already know, like Koulibaly in the Premier League, right? And there's a lot of players that we're familiar with. Who are the players that you think, people who haven't seen the Senegalese team, who are the players they could discover from this tournament, do you think?
I think sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, one to watch. Sorry, is leading the line with perhaps in that sort of attacking sense of going up, looking up front. You've got Ilman Ndiaye, who plays for Sheffield United. He's currently got 9 goals this season in the Championship, and he's going to the World Cup. He was not so long ago playing non-league football in England. He was on loan from Sheffield United, but he was so it's quite the journey for him to be now potentially going to start in the World Cup against the Dutch on next week, and potentially he's one to keep an eye out on, because he could. Sheffield United are flying in the Championship at the moment. If they go up, he'll be one that people keep an eye on for next season, I believe. But if people want to have a look at him at the World Cup, I think he's one to keep an eye on, certainly. Nice. I think also in pardon me, sorry. Attacking in sort of the attacking sense, you've got Bouladia, who plays for, currently he's on loan at Salernitano. There you go, in
Italy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You could probably tell me more about him actually from sort of his sort of week to week, what he's doing week to week. But he's I believe he's doing all right. He's got about 5 or 6 goals I think for them this season, and he's he's on loan from Villarreal, and he's doing the job. So he might be one to watch as well in terms of their attacking threat. So I'd say Ndiaye and Bouladia are probably the 2 you want to keep an eye out for.
Very nice. Yeah, Dia has been a key part of a vastly improving Salernitana team this year. They look like they were doomed, and this year they really have been impressive. Like, incredibly dangerous on the counter-attack and on the transition. I think he's been a key part of that. So, a really exciting player to keep an eye out for. Now, the final question before we get your bold predictions about the World Cup is, what do you think would be a successful tournament for Senegal? Now, of course, a lot of people are expecting Senegal to be the most successful African team at the tournament, probably. So what do you think that success looks like?
Well, success would potentially look like second round, I think, is the bare minimum I think people are expecting. People are expecting either first or second in the group. I mean, people are optimistic enough to think that perhaps if they get something against the Dutch in the first game, then they can kick on from there. And Qatar is such an unknown quantity, nobody knows what they're like, but Senegal will be expecting to beat them. And as Ecuador, again, not so much an unknown quantity, but you never know what to expect really, because they've had a good qualification campaign, and if they can carry that momentum into the World Cup, they could be dangerous. But Senegal will still be expecting to get the better of them. So a minimum second in the group, and then a second round tie, which potentially lines them up against England if England win their group. So if they were able to come through that and get to the quarterfinals, that would be seen as a successful tournament, I think.
Very nice. I'm really excited about this tournament for Senegal. I think, like, that group, as you said, you got to be looking to get through that group, really. Ecuador are a dangerous team, but I think Senegal should be getting ahead of them in the standings. But we're going to go to your bold predictions. And the first one is, which team do you expect to be lifting the trophy come the end of the tournament?
I'm going to be boring and say Brazil. I think they just...
It's a common answer, don't worry.
I know. I mean, I'm just looking at their squad, and I think they can't mess this up, really. You look at that team and you think, well, how are they going to mess it up? Like, what is going to be the thing that goes wrong? But on paper, they should win the tournament. Possibly pushed close by Argentina. I think they'd be due to be facing off in the semis if they do both get through. But Brazil probably just have that little bit more about them. So, and I think, if they got the beating of anyone, I think.
Yeah, they do look terrifying. The second they announced their squad, I was like, Christ alive. Like, just the depth there is unbelievable. Yeah. Nice. So which players
the players they can afford to leave out as well is just ridiculous as well.
Yes. I'm an Arsenal fan. Gabriel at Arsenal's had an unbelievable season and he didn't get called up. And I was like, fair play. But then you look at the players that got in ahead of him, and you're like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes perfect
sense.
Nice. Which player do you expect to get the Golden Boot? Who's going to be a top scorer?
I'm going to say potentially. I'm torn between Neymar and Harry Kane because obviously I think Brazil will go furthest, and I think Neymar's he's just going to do it. I think this time around, I think for all the criticism he has, I mean, he still knows, he's still a fantastic footballer, and I think if Brazil are at their best, he will be key to that, and I think he'll be scoring all their goals, and he'll probably get about 7 or 8, I think, and probably if they do go all the way to win the tournament. So yeah, I'll say Neymar.
Nice.
I just think I just say that Harry Kane, like in 2018, will probably get like 4 against Iran or something like that, and then a couple of penalties along the way.
Exactly, and he has to get penalties, right? He has to. Yeah. Nice. Which player do you think will get player of the tournament? This one's a bit harder. Like Modric last time was a bit of a left field shout, maybe. Which player do you think could get player of the tournament?
I guess it kind of comes down to who makes the final, and let's just go. I'm going to go bold. Jude Bellingham.
Nice. You're the second person to say that. You're the second person to say that. I like it. I think he could, even though he's a player that people know about, this could be a tournament where he really blows up, right? I've got a feeling about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so penultimate one. Which team do you think is going to be the biggest dark horse?
I mean, as they got to the semis of the Euros, I want to say Denmark again, But then, are they really a dark horse if you make back-to-back semi-finals? It's like you predict Croatia again to go far. So are they a dark horse because they literally almost won it last time? But yeah, I mean, I guess Denmark would have to be the team I'd say is the dark horse. Maybe people aren't expecting them to do the same thing again, but I'll go Denmark.
Very nice. And then final question before we let you go. With your head and not your heart, where do you think Senegal will get to this tournament?
Second round, I think. I think they'll get through the group, but then if finishing second probably means England, and I think England will probably just have a little bit too much there.
Okay, nice. Well, hopefully you're starting to get I'm starting to get a bit more excited about the World Cup now. Now the league's finished, I feel like I'm really focusing on it. It's starting to get a bit hyped. It is only a couple of days away, but Ibrahim, thank you for coming on to the show. For our viewers and listeners, if they want to find you online, keep up with your work, where can they find you?
Just on Twitter at Ibrahim Mustapha, all one word, and you'll find me there. I'll be my profile picture is my book, No Longer Naive, so another plug for that. I'm also on Instagram as well. If you follow My Random Football on Instagram, that's just basically an account of all my collection of football shirts and
nice.
Stuff when I go to games and things like that. It's a football centric account. So yeah, if people want to check that out, by all means do that. Yeah. I also started TikTok as well for it as well. So I'm still figuring that out. It's all for young people. TikTok scares me.
Man, honestly, we are trying to get into TikTok. We've given one of our hosts that job and just been like, you deal with it. I'm too old for that. You can do that one. But thank you again for coming on to the show. And yeah, viewers, you will see somewhere around here, there's a subscribe and like button. Hit both of them and you can find the rest of our World Cup 2022 preview videos. We're aiming to get all 32 countries. You'll be able to see how successful we've been. We're running out of time and I'm not going to hold my breath, but hopefully we get most of them, and we will see you next time, guys. Thank you, Ibrahim.